My name is Miles Goliak. I'm the writer, director, producer of The Hollow and The Historian, and you're listening to the Dave and Creech Show.
This is the Dave and Creech Show, the only podcast where podcaster CJ Creech and actor Dave Sheridan come together to talk all things entertainment with your favorite entertainers. Want to ask our guests a question? Tweet them to @DaveSheridan or @CJCNOV88, and they may be asked to our guests live on the show. We do have to ask you stay seated during the podcast because this ride may get a little bit hilarious. Now here's your hosts, Dave and Creech.
Hey everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Dave and Creech Show. It's me here, Creech, and unfortunately Dave Sheridan's not going to be able to join us, like I said on the last episode. It is kind of short notice when I decided to go ahead with the Friday the 13th episode, but I hope everybody out there is having a spooky and safe Friday the 13th. Like, those things go together, right? We will have Dave on probably by the next episode again. Once again, short notice. He texted me last night, and he probably wasn't going to be able to make it. So, here I am. Here we are. Once again, this only comes about a couple days of the year. And actually, it's kind of funny, because this is like a really overdue podcast, if you really think about it. Because I believe I announced on a podcast forever ago, sometime last year, I think in October actually, that we were going to do a Friday the 13th episode. But it was just a case of me and Dave were overwhelmed with things at the time. So, here we are, about 6 months later, and usually late as usual, like we here at Dave and Creech always are. We are here for a Friday the 13th episode, and want a little more feedback than normal. I mean, you know, a lot of people tweet that they love the episodes, or, you know, this and that. I want to get to know some of you guys out there, so after you listen to this podcast, or while you're listening to this podcast, let me know, you know? I mean, Friday the 13th, there's people who just don't, ignore it. There's people who celebrate it. If you celebrate it, I'm interested in wondering how you celebrate it. Do you stay in and watch horror movies? Do you watch Friday the 13th films? Because, those seem to go hand in hand. Some people just maybe celebrate general horror in general. Are there any superstitions that you kind of try to stay away? Or, you try to avoid black cats and all things like that? I mean, I don't know. Me personally, it's kind of just a normal day for me. I mean, if I can get in a Jason movie, then I do. When I do the podcast, it keeps me busy because not only do I record, we're not live, which is something we'll eventually look forward to doing, at least, every now and then, but we're not live. So basically what amounts to me talking, and if Dave's here, me and Dave talking, and Dave, as you know, I mean, with some of the episodes Dave's been on, he can talk for a long time. So while I may release a 2-hour podcast with Dave, it could be 3 to 4 hours of actual recording. But, I have to go back through, I have to edit it again, listen to it. After I edit it all together, I have to re-listen to it to make sure there's no odd cuts. And, here we are with the release of the podcast. So, it's a labor of love and a lot of work for me, but if I'm not doing that or doing anything with the podcast or interviews or anything like that, writing for FanFest, I just love Friday the 13th films, and that's why I've always wanted to do a Friday the 13th special. I can't even remember how long it's been since I saw Friday the 13th for the first time, or how long ago it was. I can tell you my first really real introduction, I mean, notwithstanding of knowing the character, but the first time I actually really wanted to see a movie involving Jason was Freddy vs. Jason. And that's just because I remember, I was really young when Jason Goes to Hell came out. I remember the poster and the commercials, but as a kid, that was probably 3 or 4 at the time, maybe 5. I wasn't really interested in it because I didn't like scary movies as a kid. And when Jason X came out, I actually was in middle school. And my friend Dustin was completely obsessed with horror movies. And actually, the more I think about it, that's probably the first movie I saw was Jason X. And I remember everybody talking about it. And like I said, my friend Dustin at the time, God rest his soul, he was obsessed with horror movies. Like, I could go to his house and he would have wall-to-wall VHSs of all the horror movies. And then, of course, after VHS died, he would start converting everything to DVD. But he was just such a horror-loving individual. It was always an experience because he'd want me to watch the stuff, and I didn't. And at first I really didn't want to watch it. But I do want to share a little funny anecdote about Dustin, since we don't have Dave here to tell us many stories. But my friend Dustin, as I've mentioned, was a horror aficionado, and in 8th grade we were in basically what you would call dummy math, which was like math but slowed down, I guess you could say. And this was one of these weird classes because for this to be a math class, I don't recall us doing very little math, which is kind of weird. Like every Friday we wouldn't do any math. We would have like coloring sessions. And I can remember one around Easter time. Me and Dustin decided we didn't just want to color Easter bunnies because, it was lame. We decided to see who could come up with the coolest picture. So I had a picture of the Easter Bunny frolicking and hopping down a trail, and who I turned into Ram Bunny, basically a Rambo version of Bunny, gave the bunny a bandana, turned its basket of Easter eggs to a basket of grenades, and had him hopping through a war zone. And Dustin, not to be deterred, and inspired by his love of horror, had a picture of 3 bunnies that he turned into Jason from Friday the 13th, Freddy from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Michael Myers from Halloween. And the teacher comes up and looks at his after she's done, and she's like, "Oh, look at these sweet, cute little dressed up bunnies." And Dustin threw down his crayons, and he was like, "Lady, are you kidding me? These are 3 of the world's most notorious cinematic mass murderers." And she just looked at him like, "Oh, that's cute," and just walked away. And it was stuff like that, his passion for horror that got me to peeking more and more and looking into horror. Like I said, he's the reason why I watched Jason X. And then, since I was able to make it through, I got wrapped up in all of the excitement surrounding Freddy vs. Jason. So, Freddy vs. Jason was the first film in the Friday the 13th universe that I wound up seeing in the theaters. I was underage, but I got my friend Brian, one of his uncles came to town and took us both. Yeah, enjoyed that movie. Unfortunately, it didn't feature our guest, Mr. Kane Hodder, in it, but it was really good. And then fast forward a couple years, actually like a decade, and working at a theater, the Friday the 13th remake comes out. And didn't really like it, to be honest, when I saw it in theaters. I got it still on Blu-ray because I don't know if anybody else out there has this problem, but I'm a completionist. So even if a movie sucks, if I'm collecting a series, I have to have every one of the movies in the series. So, same goes with the Saw series. There's quite a few duds in there, but I have them all. But, I watched it on Blu-ray, and I was like, you know what? It's really not that bad. And I think it was due to the fact that I was watching it at midnight, and I was just really tired after working, so I didn't really pay too much attention and didn't enjoy it. So my passion of Friday the 13th films has been going on for quite a while now. And, I can go back to Christmases. I remember Christmas of 2003 was actually the first time I got to see all of the Jason films, because my parents got me that year Friday the 13th DVD box set, which had the first 8. It was of the Paramount films. So that was my first time really experiencing all of those movies. Like I said, because I didn't really watch many of them back in the day. I mean, Dustin had them, but I wasn't ready for those yet. And I remember in 2004, the year after, I believe it was 2004, it might have been 2005, one of those 2 years, for Christmas, I got the Crystal Lake Memories book, which I still have to this day, but it was signed by the author Peter Brack, and it's an amazing book if you're a fan of Friday the 13th, because it has a bunch of pictures and stories and interviews with pretty much the entire cast that was alive of every single film at that point. So it's a really good read if you want to find out more. I mean, they did come out with a documentary version, which is like I think it's a 4.5 to 5 hour documentary about the movies based on that book, but the book still has way more information that, honestly, I would highly recommend if you are at all a fan of Friday the 13th. But that catches us up to today. Now, as you know, we've been doing this podcast for a while, and, before Dave and Creech, there was Creech Questions, and, I've been doing a lot of traveling over the past couple of years, and I've gotten to interview and meet many celebrities from many movies, many television shows, but one of the ones that's just like right in the nostalgia is things that I grew up with. I love interviewing people from things that I adored as a kid, like when I interviewed Lyndon Ashby, who played Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat for Dave and Creech, or when I interviewed Lou Temple, or Bill Moseley from The Devil's Rejects. It's interviews like that really stick with me and that I enjoy the most. So to interview some people from Friday the 13th, or have them involved with the podcast in any way, shape, or form is just awesome. And so we're going to start with, Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, Jason himself, right? Now, this interview with Kane Hodder, you actually heard, I believe it was not even 2 episodes ago. But hey, it's a Friday the 13th special, so sue me, right? So we're going to re-air the interview our 6-year-old correspondent, and of course my daughter, Lexi, did with Jason Voorhees from part 7 through 10 himself, Mr. Kane Hodder.
Okay, hey guys, I'm here with Kane Hodder that plays Jason in Friday the 13th and Victor Crowley. So what's your favorite part of playing in the movie?
Well, I love playing both those characters, but my favorite part is that I always work with people I know. Some of my friends are some of the other actors in the movie, so it's always fun to work with your friends.
I've watched those movies, and they were my favorite.
Were they?
Yeah.
You watched those movies?
Yeah.
I'm not very friendly in those movies, am I?
No.
Well, thank you for watching anyway.
Yeah, but they're my favorite parts. Like, I think there's like so much detail in them.
Wow. Good job. Yes, there is a lot of detail in those movies, and I'm glad you noticed that.
Like, what was your favorite memory in the movie?
Well, sometimes I like some of the creative ways that I kill people. It's pretty violent, but the writers come up with pretty interesting ways, and I like doing the stunts also.
Yeah, like the stunts look very cool.
Thank you.
What's your favorite food?
My favorite food? Well, my wife is a very good cook, so anything she likes to make at home is my favorite.
My favorite food is pasta.
Wow, what about pizza? Do you like that?
Yes, pizza, delicious. My favorite kind is pepperoni.
Mine too.
Because I ate pizza last night.
You did?
Yes.
I had shrimp last night.
Yeah. I don't like shrimp.
No?
I used to eat it, but now I don't like
Well, if you used to eat it, you used to like it. Come on. Try it again. One more time, try it.
it. I still don't like it. Okay, so which movie is your favorite of the Jason movies?
I would have to say Part 7 is my favorite.
I would say, I say that one.
Yep, that's Part 7. That's the same thing I like.
I also like the one in space.
That was pretty good. Jason in space, pretty strange, but it was a good movie.
I don't know even how you got in space.
Well, let's not worry about that right now. I don't know either, really, but I got there.
Maybe you got Earth by a strange planet called like Planet of Aliens, and then they sent you to space.
Okay, that's possible.
And sometimes maybe you never know if you like sleep, and then aliens could get to you.
That's true.
I'm having a hard time being shy, but I'm trying not to get
You're
weird.
not, I don't think you're shy at all. Thank you very much for having me on your program. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, welcome back. And up next is I believe, an interview that we have released before. I don't remember when, but if we haven't, feel free to correct me, but I'm pretty sure we did. This interview is from one of my personal favorite Friday the 13th films. Actually, I should say an actor from one of my personal favorite Friday the 13th films. For those who don't know, my favorite in the actual Friday the 13th series is Part 6, and then Part 4 and Part 3. That's my top 3. And Part 3 is the one that was actually in 3D. And there was a character named Shelly who actually is responsible for really giving Jason his mask. And the guy who plays Shelly, Larry Zerner's pretty cool, interviewed him. And we actually didn't wind up talking any Friday the 13th of his experience on the set, as honestly that's been documented a lot. And I would suggest, go to see his interviews on Bloody Disgusting or everything. I wanted to give it a little bit of a different feel to this interview. And so what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about Friday the 13th, the game, which is actually, this interview was recorded before he was officially announced and released as an extra counselor for the game. But he still had some great ideas, and he talks about playing the game, which you can also play with him if you have a PlayStation or Xbox. But we talk about Friday the 13th, the game, and we also talk about the ongoing legal battle with the Friday the 13th copyright and script that's been going on for a little while. So without any further delay, we're going to hit up our final interview for this podcast. Here it is, Larry Zerner, Friday the 13th, Part 3. Enjoy.
If we want to have a good interview, we do the podcast while we're playing the Friday 13th game.
Right? Would that be fun though? You'd hear. Well, I'd be dying a lot.
No, the point of the game is not like it's not more fun. Like if you're the counselor and you escape, that's not more fun than getting killed.
Very true. I mean, I try to last as long as I can now because some of the the people that do the glitching.
But why are you playing PS4 or Xbox?
Yeah, I play on PS4.
So I'm on Xbox. So I usually just, like, all these people have found me, that I'm Shelly. So I just go on and I set up a private match, and then I invite people, anyone I see on my friends list who's already playing it, and I immediately get 8 people in, and then you're just playing with people and then you don't have to worry about. Although I did get shot yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Someone shot me. I was like, fuck, I'm not sure. I think they may have been trying to shoot Jason, but still, fuck.
I've had that happen. Jason grabbed me, and I heard somebody say, "I'm gonna help you out," and then they wound up shooting me. So I didn't really hurt Jason at all, and then I'm dead, so it doesn't matter.
It's fun, right? You're just to play with people and fuck around. It doesn't matter. There's no winning. If you're Jason and you don't get all 8, okay, so. And if you're a counselor and, the point is to have fun. It's not, it's not. Like, you can, like call the police and then go wait at the exit and, run out. And you can do that, but that's not really fun.
No. It is kind of fun, though, when you can see just the different playing styles of people who play Jason. Like, sometimes you can play and you'll see somebody who's an inexperienced Jason, and then it's kind of just, you could really escape or last the whole round. But then you have those that are like really good and like just trapping up all the exits, and they're just on you the entire game. It's just
they put traps out the windows and the best times I've had is when you're in the car and Jason's trying to stop you. That's always really fun.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought one game I thought I was going to escape on the boat. And I'd never been boat killed before, but I didn't even know that Jason could knock you off the boat. So
I've seen that once.
I'm taking my time, and then I hear I get knocked in the water. I'm like, wait, what's going on? And then by that point, I'm just dead.
No, right. If Jason ding you, you're just dead. That's it. There's nothing else.
You said previously in interviews that you'd love to be a DLC character. What do you think your special skill should be?
I said the good thing they should have it that if Shelley walks into a cabin, all the women would throw themselves out the window.
That could be good.
I thought that would be hilarious.
Yeah. I feel like you use some juggling, something.
Yeah, juggling.
Maybe that can help you build stamina.
No, he would. The Shelley character would have the harpoon gun.
Right, that would be a pretty badass gun to use. Probably be as hard to kill Jason as with the shotgun, but still, it'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Who do you find yourself playing as most often?
Well, I'm usually the black guy because he was quick, but lately I've been dying first, so now I'm thinking I'm going to switch it up. I don't get to play like that much. Like at most I'll play like 2 rounds and then I'll have to leave. Like that's 45 minutes and then I gotta go. So I think I'm level 13, so it's not like I played. That's not a lot of games. I'd rather be Jason than a counselor.
Yeah. I do have to say, like the closest to the Shelley character that they have on there is, the guy with the glasses, the kind of
Rashad.
He's the worst counselor in the game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they needed to put a nerd in there, and they didn't have any rights to any of the actual characters, so they created the character. But yeah, I've actually never played as that character.
Please don't. He's the worst character in the game. He dies first every time.
I think he's good at putting gas in the car and putting the battery in, right? He's a 10 on that, and he's stealthy.
Yeah, he's really good at doing that stuff if you can actually get him to run and do it. But his stamina getting there is just leaves a lot to be desired.
And I'm so rarely able to find the battery and the gas, and
I only find that stuff when Jason's either close by and kills me, or I had one time playing that game where literally the gas, the keys, and the battery spawned within cabins next to each other, where the car was at, and I got it.
That's what it should be. They should be close to the car.
Yeah.
The problem is when somebody dies and they have the keys and where they've run away, so you'll never find it.
Yeah, it's like needle in a haystack. You're like, where did this go? And then of course, if they get killed in the water, then it eventually washes onto shore. But yeah, it's a nightmare trying.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. If you're holding on to anything and you get killed in the water, it washes onto shore eventually. There's no rhyme or reason where it shows up. So then you have to like go looking along the edges and try to find where it's at.
How would you even know?
Yeah.
How would you even know that you have to look? Because no one can tell you that they died in the water.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unless they tell you he's gonna kill me in the water. Go in the water.
Yeah, I'm going in the water, guys. Pray for me.
Yeah.
And then if you don't hear anything else, like, okay, well, obviously he did not make it. Now, obviously, your character in the film did not get to kill Jason. In the game, have you really been focusing on trying to revenge your death?
No. No. Well, because how are you going to do that?
You have to have like a whole team Shelley. That's just everybody's
But
going to
listen. What's really cool for me is like when I walk into the barn in the game, it really brings back memories of being in that barn. I mean, I was in that barn, right? I was in there. I did film scenes in there. And walking in the barn in the game is like walking in the barn in real. I mean, it's like, wow. It's really realistic in a way. You know, it's like, I've been here. It's very cool for me.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be awesome. And plus, probably just being able to see the quote unquote the Higgins Haven set, since I know it got burnt down.
The main Higgins Haven's cabin is slightly different. I mean, it's a lot different, you know. But it's somewhat the same. But the barn is much more the way it was. I wish we can go up on top too. We can't.
Yeah,
Can't climb the ladder.
I'm really surprised that they didn't. I mean, I guess they didn't want to add like a climbing animation for ladders and everything, but that would be pretty good. Like, I mean, granted, I don't know, Jason, he did climb ladders in the movies, but I think that'd be great to just like jump off.
Yeah, he kills the bikers up there, and then at the end he climbs up there again.
Yeah. Now, after the filming of Part 3, did you get to go back to Higgins Haven before it burnt down?
No, I never went back there. I did go back to the store a few years ago. We filmed an extra for the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, and we all went back. We went to the store.
That's the 8-hour-long documentary, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I have watched that one. That one was definitely had to watch in pieces, but
yeah. Well, look, it's right. It's I mean, it's an 8-hour documentary or it's 8 half-hour documentaries about each movie. I mean, you can look at it that way too.
Exactly. It's like basically like how Netflix does. You can just cut it up into little sections and watch it whenever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's great. They did a great job.
Yes. Yeah. No, the documentary was definitely phenomenal. And then there's another one coming out. I believe it's this year. I know the In Memoriam.
Yeah.
You were interviewed.
Yeah. I'm talking to those guys who are doing that. It should be. I don't want to step on anything, but yeah, it should be in the fall.
I do want to ask you, since you do law now, with all the success, especially thinking it's now 35 years from Part 3. I mean, there's, I believe, the last count 12 films. With one that was about to start production and then got canceled. But with all this success, obviously you think that there would be somebody at whoever owns the rights to be like, hey, let's make another movie. But now there's the legal battle going on between the original screenwriter Victor Miller and director / producer Sean Cunningham that pretty much threatens to split the franchise literally in half. Wanted to get your take on the situation, and also where do you think the lawsuit will ultimately end up?
Oh, the lawsuit started, so under the Copyright Act, there's a provision that says 35 years after you transfer a copyright, you can terminate that transfer and get your rights back. So that's what Victor Miller did, is because it's been 35 years from the first movie coming out, and he terminated the transfer. And Sean said, no, you can't terminate because there's an exception to that rule, which says you cannot terminate if the work was a work for hire or you were an employee. And so Sean is taking the position that Victor was his employee And so Sean sued Victor to have the court rule that the termination is not valid. And both sides have filed motions for summary judgment, which are motions to basically say, Your Honor, the facts are not in dispute. Just decide whether Victor was or was not an employee. And based on that ruling, the court that will decide who wins the lawsuit. And that should be decided, I think, in the next few weeks. They filed their motions back in June, so we could get a ruling. I have to check when the date of the hearing is, but the ruling could come soon. And then, so if Sean wins, then everything will stay the same. If Victor wins, that would still, so even when you send out this notice, you have to send out the notice 2 years before the termination takes place. So there's still a period of time where they will make a deal. But there's a really interesting question, which is, what is it that Victor created, and in terms of the Friday the 13th franchise, because the Jason that we know and love, right, is not really in Friday the 13th, the first one, right? He's just the boy who shows up for a few seconds at the end of the movie, and not the hockey mask killer that has become famous. And so there's a very interesting issue as to what Victor would own and what he could control and what he could authorize. And also the other caveat is that the termination only applies in the United States. So even if Victor could authorize another Friday the 13th movie, he could only authorize it in the United States, not anywhere else, not in Canada. It could be distributed in Canada or anywhere else outside the United States. So really, in reality, no one would make a movie like that. But on the other hand, Paramount couldn't make a Friday the 13th movie in the United States, so the reality is they'd have to make a deal. And the question is simply then, how much money is it? How much money does he get? And that's the question.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't seem as bleak as some of the stuff I've seen on the internet. It was like, no more Jasons, or Jason, he can use the name but not the character, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, well, that's why people don't. They're not lawyers. There will be a deal. Eventually, there will be a deal. There will be more movies. I mean, the problem is, Paramount can get off their ass and make a movie. That's really the problem. They were going into production, and from what I've heard from many sources is that they got scared because Rings bombed, and they're like, oh, people aren't going to see horror movies anymore, or reboots of horror movies, so forget it. And, as if Friday the 13th and Rings are the same thing. I mean, it's it's like, I don't know
anybody who liked Rings when it was just the original. So
first Ring is really good. I really like that movie. It's good.
Now the first one was pretty decent, but then you had the second one, which was just, I don't even know what they were thinking when they did that one.
Right, there's just been two. I mean, in America, and it doesn't, it doesn't have the power that the Friday the 13th has. And then they're also overdoing it, because I heard that they were trying to do it at like a $20 million budget. It's like, dude, just make them at $5 million and you can make money. I mean, as opposed to making nothing, just make some $5 million movies. They will make money.
Exactly.
I know
look at
directors who would love to make a Friday the 13th movie and will go, Joe Lynch, Adam Green, Mike Mendez, Dan Ferens. All these people would love to do a Friday the 13th movie and would knock it out of the park.
Hopefully that they will get off of their, I wouldn't even say high horse, but let's maybe rethink canceling it, because I had some friends who were apparently supposed to do some production work on it, and then it got canceled. But hopefully with the game doing as well as it has, And hopefully, this continued fervor over, now part 3 in 3D is now 35 years old. So the rescreenings of that, maybe they'll rethink it as maybe after this whole case gets settled. But
yeah, right now. So now now they can't really do anything.
Yeah.
My understanding, I've also heard is that the Paramount's rights, like it goes back to Warner Brothers. I'm not sure this is true, but I've heard it goes back to New Line at the end of the year, so their time is up. Not sure that's true, but in any case, they really can't do anything until they're going to see what happens with this case, and that this case should be resolved. I mean, there may not be a ruling. So they both filed motions to have the judge decide, but the judge may decide, there's questions of fact that need to be decided, and so we have to have a jury trial. And if there's a jury trial, that's not going to happen for another few months. So we may not have a decision in the next month.
You did Friday the 13th Part 3, and you went and did, I believe, one other film before kind of moving away from acting, right?
Well, I had a small role in a horrible movie called Hadley's Rebellion, and then I did some TV and some commercials, and I kept, that movie was 82. I really stayed in the business until like 87, 80, and then I went to law school. So I was trying for a long time, just never was getting roles.
With law school, was it something you'd always wanted to do as a kid? Lawyers, there are some kids who want to grow up to be a lawyer. Because I would love to be a lawyer because I like arguing. But what kind of made you want to become a lawyer?
When I was growing up, I had no desire to be a lawyer. So my dad was a lawyer, and I was like, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be an actor. That's the thing. And then, acting wasn't working. And then my dad said, well, I'll pay for law school. So I was like, well, I'm not doing much, so might as well do something. So I went to law school with the thought that I would get into producing. Like that was in the back of my head, and then started doing entertainment law and copyright law, and that's what I've been doing now 26 years, and I really love it. So it all worked out really well. I have great clients and really interesting cases, and it's fabulous. So it worked out.
Yes, that's definitely a good thing that it worked out for you.
Absolutely.
Alright guys, well it is time for me to get out of here. I hope you've enjoyed the interviews, hope you've enjoyed learning a little more about me. We will see you next week at some point. We haven't nailed the day yet, but we will see you next week with a brand new episode, hopefully with Dave Sheridan, but definitely with Chosen Jacobs of Stephen King's It, as he gets interviewed by the girl you heard earlier, Lexi. It's a great interview, another hilarious one, recorded at Days of the Dead Atlanta. And with that being said, I'm signing off. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and I guess for Friday the 13th's sake, stay spooky.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you for listening to the Dave and Creech Show. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Dave and CJ. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of Creech Creative Productions or any of its affiliates.